So let's just jump straight into this because I know we're running a little over time as we normally do. I'm going to ask you 2 questions to start with. First question is, what do you tell your mother that you do for a living? And the second question is, because this is a very, very incestuous business, if you thought the media business was incestuous and the digital media business is even more incestuous, how are you all related to each other? Claire.
Hi, everyone. My parents have no idea what I do at all. I love to send them things like this so they actually realize that I have a real job. My dad has recently likened me to Jerry Maguire, which I feel like is slightly off, but I'll take it. As far as relationships here go, all of our clients have an MCM partner as well as us to support. So we have a couple of people with Maker Studios. So it's very much like we all kind of work together.
So my parents also don't have any idea about my job, but I also keep sending them about the picture, what I'm doing, and keep telling them stories about what I'm doing. But yeah, as long as I'm fun and I'm happy doing it, they fine with it. And our relationship is my mother, my father. No, I'm kidding. Skin Indonesia is to work with makers. Yeah, we are partner.
So the artist you manage is called Skinny Indonesian.
Yeah, Skin Indonesia.
Do you want to just tell the audience a little bit about who they are?
Skin Indonesian 24 is one of the YouTubers from Indonesia. And there are 2 people there. It's Andovi Dalopas and also Jovial Dalopas. And they have like 370 subscribers.
750,000, right? And that's big for Indonesia. So you're managing one of Indonesia's biggest artists.
Kinda.
Okay. And Gautam, what do you tell your mother?
Yeah, so I tell my mother I run a media network, except it's not on TV, it's online. And our shows are not TV shows, they are artists and talent like Skinny Indonesian and many artists around the world. Before I finished that, they asked me who owns us. We're owned by Disney, and that's usually what my parents tell everybody else, instead of makeup.
Oh, it's Disney. Oh. Meliana, you're the newest manager on the stage, right? You've been doing this for less than a year.
Yes.
You also have another job?
Yes. I'm also working as social at Ogilvy in Indonesia as an account management and doing the social listening and analytics. That's it. So I have 2 jobs.
and I mean, I think that's quite common in digital land. But how are you? Do you merge the 2 roles? Are you taking your knowledge from social at Ogilvy and overlaying that into the talent that you're working with?
Yes, of course. When I started the Skin Indonesia 24, truly that's honestly they are really mass. Like they remember their schedule by themselves. Like they don't use the Google Calendar and stuff, and they not really managing their stuff well. But then since I joined them, I keep and I start doing the strategy for them. What is good, what is not good, and they kept running until now. So just combine them together, and also they have also quite a few clients from Ogilvy.
So you manage one artist, or it's 2 brothers, but you manage one artist. Claire, how many artists are you running around the world chasing at the moment?
So I head up the LA office, and then we have an office in London as well. And between the 2, we have just under 30 talent in total. Some that are based in Europe, and then a few that are based in the US. But for all of them, they do truly have a completely global audience. So not only are we building out the talent roster from a US perspective, but we also manage all kind of international opportunities out of the US office.
So let's do some name dropping, because you do manage some fairly big names. you have to probably be a teenager to know most of them, but people like Zoella and who else do you manage?
Yeah, Zoella. We have Marcus Butler, who's with us today, later on, and Alfie Days, Pointless blog. We work with Claire Marshall in the US, Tanya Burr, Pixie Woo. Yeah, we have some great people.
So right now, if you were 18 years old, you'd be going crazy. Okay, I can tell you that because I've seen what happens when those artists get together with their fans. And Gautam, you're managing a few more than 30.
Yeah, we manage about 55,000 makers
Say that again.
Around the
55,000.
55,000. It keeps us a little busy. And based across 100 countries. We have offices across the region, including 3 in Southeast Asia. We have presence in Australia, UK, Latin America, and pretty soon Japan.
How on earth, I know you get asked this all the time, but how on earth can one company manage 55,000 artists?
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of the genesis of the YouTube community has been about self-expression and using the power of platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Vine to build content and build an audience. And what we do with our 55,000 creators is we give them a set of a differentiated group of services to help them build their audiences, their brands, and create commercial opportunities, along with, Melly and Claire and, other members in the group. And I put them in, 3 or 4 main categories. The first is audience development. So a number of our 55,000 creators are budding YouTubers, many of whom will be at Digital Matters University tomorrow, who are not ready yet to go in front of brands, but are building their craft up. And with them, we give them a technology and help them build their audiences ground up and cultivate a fan base online. As they move up and become players like Ginny Boy and Ed Ozell and Skinny Indonesian, right, we give them some additional resources. We give them human coaching. We put financing behind some of their content initiatives, and we present them to brands. And some of them kind of move up to the very top and become global superstars. Players like PewDiePie and Bart Baker. A number of big musicians, fashionistas around the globe. And with them, right, we give them a white glove treatment where we work on their commercial opportunities across all lines of businesses. We look at shows, we pitch them to television. We look at merchandising and books, and that top layer group, right? We treat them, like superstars that as of a talent agency would treat them.
Everyone knows PewDiePie, right? PewDiePie, 37 million subscribers now on YouTube?
As of last week, yes.
And the biggest YouTuber on the planet. I mean, we did ask. I think we asked the question yesterday. But will PewDiePie, because of the influence of all of these artists now having on Hollywood, Hollywood sitting up and taking note, and obviously your company was bought by Disney. Will PewDiePie ever make it onto Game of Thrones?
He hopes so. Let's hope HBO is listening. But I think it's a natural transition for many of these makers, because many of them grow up as teenagers and youngsters, building up an audience online. But as they grow up, right, so do their audiences, and there are opportunities to present them to traditional platforms like television and movies and books and gaming and everything.
So you mentioned commercialization quite a bit. Now, there's been a lot of conversations about the creator community working with brands. What are the other commercial opportunities for artists out there?
I think, one of our big focuses at the moment is that kind of diversification of their brands, which is obviously a balance in itself, because there's only so much that they can do. And as we keep speaking about, I'm sure, a lot over the last couple of days, with this type of talent, authenticity and their integrity is key. It's what this is, literally built on. So it's really not a case of doing everything and sticking their name on it and being done with it. They really are involved in every aspect of everything they do, so that is time consuming in itself. So I think it's about working, we work with, as I said, quite a few talent overall, and we're completely 360. We are their business managers. We work with them on everything that they do. So I think it's knowing what everyone's aspirations are, and then working with that individual, because it really is different for everyone. There isn't a one size fits all. I know we kind of touched upon books, which does seem to be something that everyone's doing, but I do really feel like each have been unique in, and I think that's the key. Books, we can't sniff at that, the fact that they've been extremely successful, which in itself is bizarre that we've gone back to books, which...
And this is paper books. They're
paper
not downloading them to Kindles, right? They're buying books. We're not talking about e-books. Yeah, they love a book. They love to have that tangible, which is interesting. I think it's because in a lot of ways they don't get that from speaking to them on screen, yet the relationship is so powerful, so they really love to have like a tangible thing. But I think... Just say that Zoella released her book.
Yeah, it was the fastest selling debut novel of all time. She actually sold more than J.K. Rowling.
This is digital world selling analog books.
Yeah, and also that was teen fiction, which was something a little bit different. Not many people have gone into fiction. There's a lot of kind of memoirs and autobiographies, but that was something a little bit different. And then with Alfie, who you guys will meet later today, he brought out kind of this really fun kind of interactive puzzle book, which is kind of like gives the audience the ability to be involved and kind of finish the book with him. Marcus has a book that's kind of like big brotherly advice with a real sense of humor, and I think that's been the key. Joe has done a graphic novel, so it's finding that one thing that has been really successful, but then putting the personal spin on it. And that's only one.
Are they their ideas or are they your ideas? Did someone at your agency say,
oh, God, no.
Zoe write a book?
I wish we had that level of control, but we really don't. And and I think that's been the key. And when it comes to working with brands, finding other revenue streams for them, I always say, no one understands their audience and their fan base better than they do. So, and I think we're here to support and guide and offer advice and help them get to what they want, and help them do what they want to do, but as far as the control completely lies with them, and they know what they want to do.
So are you more of a partner than a manager?
Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
Meliana, how are you commercializing Skinny Indonesian? As I say, Claire's working with 30 artists, you're working with two brothers. What kind of things are they doing to because it's a full-time job for them now, right?
But Andovi is still finishing their study now. His study now in university in Indonesia, and Jovial is more much time and do that. But then Jovial also write a script for movie, and they also have their first movie about their story in YouTube, and it has been out, and it's on the 10th position after. 100 movie coming out in Indonesia this year, so it's quite big. It's quite success, I think.
So maybe they'll be on Game of Thrones.
Maybe, I wish. An upcoming movie is coming out and shooting this month for their famous video on YouTube. First famous video on YouTube is called Modus. It's how to get a girl in Indonesia, something like that. Yeah, but then they also do Master of Ceremony, become speakers on the university, and yeah. Oh, and they're also shooting for TLC Asia on January for a month for their Fun Taiwan artists. So they're exploring Taiwan.
So this is interesting. So the talking about expanding their horizons into what would be traditional media. We were talking about this the other night. Discovery Channel have them for the TLC platform going to Taiwan. To shoot a travel show? Yes, for a month. And they're competing with other YouTubers from all around the world. I'm looking forward for that too. So that's great. So Discovery are engaging now with the digital world. Yes. Gautam, 55,000 artists. How are you commercializing?
Sure. So I think the core of the opportunity is as Claire mentioned, audiences, right? This is a very coveted millennial demographic that has begun to spend more time online and less time on television, and other forms of exploitation. And, these audiences are interesting for brands, and, there's a recognition that, that personalities, these audiences are chasing personalities, and, and you will see that post-lunch, when Alfie and Marcus, show up. So what Maker has done with 55,000 creators is we've been able to create scalable packages that our clients would be interested in. And our primary focus areas, I put them in 4 categories. The first category is brand partnerships, and Luke Himes in the morning, who presented case studies with Airbnb and with Disney, Inside Out, and others, right? Opportunities to get brands to integrate into the editorial of, players like Skinny, to promote their message as a part of, the content, of Maker channels. That's Southeast Asia is one of the fastest growing branded content markets globally. The second category is social, so packaging Instagram, Facebook, Wine in some cases, hopefully Snapchat next year, is an interesting opportunity. The third category is programming, wherein there are opportunities to create bespoke shows that are not necessarily for advertisers, but maybe for other platforms like distributors and telcos or television players. Again, packaging, talent and their audiences into it. And the fourth group is media, where there is value in associating advertising with high quality, highly engaged demographics of talent like Makers and Markers and Skinny, Indonesian, and advertisers are paying premium for media buying next to these pieces. So these are kind of the 4 areas that are pretty active for us, and obviously ancillary to that, things like merchandising, and apps, and kind of new forms of
and
revenue
books.
stream. Yeah. And
So,
books.
talk about apps. We have a question from the app. What's the business model for representing 50,000 clients? You don't have to answer it, but the question's there.
No, I mean, it's a share of the revenues that are created for them. So, the core business is around advertising, where, we take a share of advertising revenues generated, a minority share of that. Television is kind of more traditional licensing models, and it's kind of not very different from how media is being bought and sold right now, with on YouTube for a revenue share.
Talking about Meliana, when you're managing one artist, then you're literally following them around everywhere, right?
Yes.
How can Maker manage that much talent? I mean, you said it's the white glove thing. How many artists do you have in the white glove group?
I'd say south of 1,000. I mean, that's where we benefit from this ecosystem to have players like, Gleam Futures and WME and CAA, where, there are different layers of management that talent requires. Maker's focus is in largely building short form kind of opportunities with them, and being like the middle person in the middle between brands and talent. However, there is an additional layer, that talent managers provide, which is largely driven at prioritizing the needs and customizing to the needs of the talent itself, and it's a very symbiotic process that works for us.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. As I said in the beginning, pretty much all of our partners have an MCM partner as well, and we definitely see a real benefit to that. There's a certain amount of kind of scale and resource that Maker Studios can offer that we can't necessarily. So I think it's all about, like you said, building in those layers and figuring out who can, kind of add value to the team. And it really does come down to the individual and what they need. But, we're certainly not possessive over our clients at all. We're all about, building a team around them and giving them what they need.
Let's go on to new talent. How are you all looking for new talent? What do you look for in an artist? Could I be one of your? No.
Totally, yeah.
I've got 200,000 subscribers. Well, the FanFest has anyway.
Oh, right, that's not.
No, but what do the three of you look for? If you're looking for new talent, I'm assuming you're not going to stop at 30. You're going to go to 31, 32, 33.
Yeah, I think, well, for us, I think it's about building out in different markets. I think that's key. We don't want to get to a point where, we're actually not trying to be maker studios. We're different, and we do want to work really closely. And for us, it's kind of working with a small talent pool, but across all aspects of what they're doing. So that's kind of, but yeah, there will certainly be some growth. And I would say, commitment is a big thing because it's time consuming, and there really does need to be that level of time that goes into it. And then, it sounds cliche, but there has to be something unique, whether that's like a unique, I can't tell you what that is because it's in itself is unique, a unique perspective, an interesting personality, just something that's a little bit different from the norm. Yeah, it's hard to say. We do also look at some of the data and we look at growth patterns. It's not necessarily around finding that person who's growing at a really rapid rate. Sometimes slow and steady wins the race. So there's definitely an element of that. But honestly, it comes down to kind of instinct and just something that...
Do you take on anyone at the start of their journey?
Definitely, everyone we work with. We've actually worked with, for some of our biggest talents, people like Zoella and Alfie and Marcus, we've worked for them for like 4 or 5 years now. So we've been there for the whole time. And yeah, we're all about finding, up-and-comers and emerging talent.
Gautam, how do you find new talent? What do you look for in new talent?
The beauty of online is, there's so many ways to create, analytics and really look for the next big, story or the next big star. To be a part of Maker, right? I think at the very core of it is just passion, right? We've had success stories from the region. East India Comedy, for example, was a 4,000 subscriber channel. But great passion and a great idea, and we saw the promise in them very early on, and today are one of the biggest YouTube channels in India. So passion's kind of at the very core, where it's not about how big you are, but it's like, are you committed and you have a unique voice and a passion about what your expression is. The second layer, I'd say, is influence. For larger makers, it's been about how large are you and how influential are you. And it doesn't have to be about in the whole demographic. It could be a mom who's talking to parents, or a kid who likes to unbox toys and is talking to other kids across that. So influence is a large part of what we look for. And the third is accessibility, where many makers are present in regions where there's a certain geographic proximity to where we are based in, and it allows us to provide them the necessary support that they seek with our presence there.
Meliana, are you looking for more talent, or are you happy with 2 brothers?
I only have 2 brothers because I have another job. That's why I'm partnering with makers.
Okay. Talking about families, okay, 2 brothers. I'm not sure if a lot of people know this, but there's quite a lot of talent is still managed by their parents or their brothers and sisters. We jokingly refer to them as mumagers. What is the role of and a lot of these YouTube and social stars are young, right? So it's obvious that the family is going to get involved. What do you see the role of the parent being, and how's that going to change in the future?
I think having, exactly like you said, for some of the younger talent, having a parent involved is integral, really. And of course, no one cares more about their child than the parent does. I think it's just knowing, what they can do and where they need some help. And I think that's key. We were talking before about how a lot of the parents play quite a role in their content as well, which is fun.
So get them from behind the camera and stick them in front. Yeah. That's the answer. What do you think is the role of the family?
Yeah, again, it's an echo Claire on that. Many parents, in at least in our experience here, are key contributors to kind of getting the YouTubers up on their feet until they've broken out. And it's a very do-it-yourself culture where you are the creator, the brand, the marketer, the advertiser, the distributor, all in one. And the role of the parent goes beyond kind of just looking at the interest, but contributing. Ginny Boy, who was here, right? His mom herself is an up-and-coming celebrity, which is a key feature in his videos. And we have many examples of this where parents have come in front of the camera, from behind the camera.
So, moving on into there's been a lot of talk about YouTube, but which platforms do you think are getting it right? And is there anything exciting coming over the horizon, kind of platform land? Facebook going to start sharing revenue with the creator community? Anything exciting happening? Who's getting it right?
I mean, I think the first point is that there are just so many out there. There's been a massive proliferation of social media platforms in the last 2 years, as I'd say, and they all speak to different audiences. It's not that they necessarily speak to one. Instagram goes, slightly older. Facebook goes slightly older. YouTube, Snapchat's very young. And what we're seeing, at least in Southeast Asia, is YouTube and Facebook are leading, but Instagram is massively catching up. It's and especially in markets like Indonesia and Philippines and Thailand, right? We're seeing Instagram, showing explosive growth. Snapchat is relatively new. I think we are, getting our hands around the platform. But there are some great success stories in the United States that many makers here have taken notice of, and we see a lot of promise in that one platform.
I think it's good as well for the talent to be very aware of who they're speaking to on each platform and what works for them, because they will engage with their audience very differently on different platforms. So I think that's always good for them to be mindful of.
So they're very much driving it. You're not driving their social strategies, but well, maybe if you work at social at Ogilvy, you're helping drive their social strategies.
Yeah, we work with them on it, but yeah, ultimately, it's kind of it's really for so many celebrities, they have social media teams that help manage their social media accounts for them. That just wouldn't work for us. That's their key, is that they have the relationship with their audience directly.
It's very interesting. We were with. We did a fan fest in Korea, and Bethany Mota was there. Bethany's one of the biggest female stars on YouTube, and a case history in and of herself. And we wanted her to tweet something to her Korean fans about a meet and greet. So we had it translated into Korean, and we gave it to her and said, "Could you tweet this?" And she said, "I'd never say that. I don't know what it says." So we tweeted it, and then she retweeted it saying, "I don't know what this says, but I think it's about my meet and greet." And that was really interesting, that she would never, ever, ever allow anything to go out under her control that she hadn't written. She doesn't want a team of social media people. We have another question from the app. Can a YouTuber be successful without an MCN?
I mean, yeah. I guess so. Again, it totally comes down to the individual and what their needs are. I think it's a matter of choice. That being said, there are a number of benefits that come from being with an MCM. It really depends. But I mean, yeah, there's people. I speak to talent all the time who don't have a team at all. They manage absolutely everything. So I think it's knowing what you need. And a lot of the time, I speak to talent and they say, "Oh, I need a publicist." And I'm like, "Well, what do you need from a publicist?" And they'll explain the role of a manager. And I'm like, "Okay, well, this is what I'm at." And sometimes I think it's so hard to know, like, what does a manager do? What does an agent do? What does an MCM do? What does a publicist do? And a lot of the time we kind of, we look to the traditional model as like, well, that's what we can be doing. Everyone needs, one of each. But it's totally down to the individual person.
For me, I think it depends. They can be successful, but on the time period, I think it's quite faster if we join the MCN, because they help us for optimize our YouTube and also meet us with another YouTubers. So we have a community that supports us, so we can grow together. I think it's better.
So they're advancing growth, they're speeding up growth for you and helping you collaborate with other
Yes,
artists and
correct.
share. And this is the other great thing, isn't it? That the old world was everyone was competing. Artists were competing to be number one in the charts or their movies get to number one and stuff. Now they want to collaborate. They're sharing
Correct.
audiences, right?
Yes.
And I think usually the MCM tends to be the first port of call as well, because it takes a while sometimes to actually have the need for a manager or have the need for an agent. So I feel like having an MCM in the first instance, it is a good kind of jumping off point.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I mean, I would tweak that question to, slightly say, can a YouTuber be successful by just being on YouTube, right? And I think the market is sophisticating, and business needs and business opportunities are proliferating at one time, but really need to be clarified. And what an MCN does for many of them is help provide the science and the data behind how they need to be addressing and tapping into these different platforms on one side, and obviously there's, who knew Snapchat would be so big this year and this quickly, right? And kind of staying a little ahead of the curve as these new platforms off YouTube take shape. But then the other side is clarifying and presenting opportunities on the commercial side, where as you mentioned, the first port of call, right? Kind of helping define and really bring an opportunity to talent that the talent can make a clear decision against, and the scale of an MCN helps essentially bring open more doors to for such opportunities.
Oh, there's some fans outside. Our time is up, and thank you so much for joining us. I mean, what I'm hearing is the role of the manager has gone from manager to business partner. No longer are you running around with a box of Kleenex trying to wipe their noses, but you're actually sitting down and helping them write.
We do that too.
You do. I've seen it. I have seen it. But you're their business partner, so you're helping them write business plans, but they are still very much in control of their destiny, which is really exciting. There's clearly a lot of different opportunities out there. Brands is just one of many, many, many. Clearly, everyone needs to be writing a book. Who knew? I have had Zoella's book read to me by my daughter, so I know everything about it. Many platforms are out there. There's no one-size-fits-all strategy, so again, you've got to be with them to help them, guide them around that. And it seems to be a really very exciting role, and I'm very keen to see how that develops over the next 12 months. So we'll see you all at Digital Matters next year. But for now, please say a big thank you to Gautam, Meliana, and Claire.